Good morning, everyone. Hey, Bobby.
How you doing, Ed?
Can't complain because no one listens. Having a good week.
Yeah, it's improving, man. It is. Yeah.
Still got that head cold, I hear.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned it, sorry, it came up, man.
You need some water? You got water over there?
Yeah, I'll get some.
Do you have some over there? If not, I can roll you one.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Thank you.
Oh, out the
door.
Watch your head. All right, now we're all covered.
All right.
Sorry about that. All right, so what we said Tuesday, we were going to talk about contingency period removal.
Yeah.
I just want to remind everybody tomorrow is what we've been waiting for. I know it says next week, but what are you going to do? I might as well say this week. Is this the one I'm looking for? No, it's up here. Here it is. There it is. Jobs report. Right. That's what we're waiting for tomorrow to come out to help with rates, because of what happened last week with the additional spending bill that messed with bonds and the rates. And over time, we're going to see it better, and it's going to get better. But first, we got to get through this.
Yeah. And off camera, we were talking about rate locks. And so I figured I should have you kind of explain them a little bit.
All right. So if you get into contract, lock your rate. That's it right now.
Immediately, right?
Yeah, because there's more downside than upside. Yep. Meaning that, yes, because I had one in end of November into December. We locked them, and that's when the rates went down. Right, it was a investment. It's like, and it's so I could have moved them, but because of the program and what they were doing, it made no sense to do that. You're better off protecting yourself with the payment you can have. If it gets better, if like a point better, then we can look at moving to a new investor if we have time. It's all about your contingency period and everything else. But because if you don't lock, and then I know I've had people who's like, I want to wait till I get this low rate or lower rate, and then they end up taking a higher rate than what I could have given them in the beginning. Yeah. So lock when you get into contract. Just go ahead and lock, and then if you get some money for buying the rate down, you can always bite the rate down. What you're locking is the day, not necessarily that interest rate. You follow me?
Okay.
Because you can still, if you locked, say at 6 3/8, but now you have money to buy down more. It's as that day. What does it cost to get to 5.99? What does it cost to get 5.875 that day? You're locking that day basically. Yeah. But the difference is you can't go from a 30-year program to a 15-year program. You'd have to relock. Okay. You follow me? That's two different pools. And sometimes 20 and 25 are the same way. It just depends. But you can change actual interest rate. Did I answer your question?
Yeah. Yeah. No, a lot of first time buyers, especially, you're like, oh, okay, should I lock a rate? Is it going to cost me anything?
No, it doesn't cost you anything to lock your rate. It just costs you if you don't lock your rate and things get worse. Yeah. Right. It's not worth it right now. Like I say, the benefit of it going down a little bit is not enough to not lock your rate.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
sometimes with a long lock, like 60 plus days, you should still lock it. Even though I sometimes don't, because I think it's going to get better or whatever, and it does. You don't want to take that risk if you're not me. Yeah. It's just, who's going to keep watching it for you? What if it happens on a day that your loan officer's not in the office, or somebody else who's locking it isn't paying attention to what happened, and now you just lost what you could have had? Makes no sense. Just lock it and be done with it.
And on the average home, if it goes up 0.5%, what's the difference in price?
Could be $200 to $300. Yeah. It just depends. It could be $100, could be $50. Depending on the program, where you're talking. Sometimes it could be, $35, $50 per eighth. Just depends on the loan amount. Because your average home, what's the average home now? 600,000, 500,000 loan amount.
Yeah, I was going to say probably 515. Yeah, somewhere there. Yeah.
So it's gonna, think about that. It's like that could be $50, right? Yeah. 1% of 500,000 could be $50 easily. So
the other one I want to talk about, especially for any first-time home buyers, is you have contingency periods, and one that you could probably go into in depth would be the loan contingency, right?
Right.
So I know it's up to the buyers when to release that, right? But what are some criteria that you would say I'm comfortable with you releasing that?
Well, so here's the thing. So we just advise you guys come up with whether you release it or not. What I mean by that's it. I don't want, until they're clear to close, something could pop up, right? Technically, right? They, oh, what do you mean I bought a car? Right? You never know, because until you run that last inquiries to see if there's any additional debt, right before docs, right before clear to close, you never know. And so clear to close means for us that everything's been signed off. They just need to sign loan documents, request wire, and close. So for me, I don't want you to release it until then.
Yeah.
But sometimes you don't have a choice. You have to release it before then.
Like I say, you have the 17-day contingency
period, right? And so most of the stuff is getting underwritten in a day or less. Just because there's not a ton of business out there. There's enough business for some people, but not enough for everybody.
Yeah.
And so some couple companies out there are buying the market right now. And what I'm getting is, what was the question? Contingency.
So, as far as the loan contingency.
Yeah. So I would not do it until everything is clear to close. Yeah. And because I know you can go, well, it's due today. How much longer? Well, it's probably going to be another day or so. Okay. And you can wait till they ask you for, release that, right? Because they have 3 days. They can request you to release it and you have 3 days or something.
Yeah. I mean, they could, you could technically probably, obviously the best thing is just extend it until your loan officer says you're clear to close, right?
Right. But I would not release until you're clear to close. Yeah. But if you're writing an offer in some areas, you don't have a choice. You don't have loan appraisal or loan contingency. But it doesn't mean you can't. Then how do you get out of the contract at that time? Well, you can. You just might have a potential to lose your earnest money deposit.
Yeah.
So that's the thing is, so if you want to release a contingency on loan, even though I don't want you to, what you're risking is your EMD, right? And how much is that usually, Bobby? 1%?
1%, yeah.
Of the sales price, right?
Correct, yes.
So if you're buying a house for $500,000, it could be $5,000 you lose.
And I while we're talking about that, if you've never written an offer on a house, I did have a client that wanted me to do a 3% EMD.
And you talked them out of it, right?
I tried my best and they were persistent on it. And I said, I really think this is a bad idea because what if something happens? What if, and it went through, but I said, man, you're really putting a lot of money at risk, for something.
When you don't have to. I understand why they did it, probably to write, because look, I'm so serious. I'm putting 3% down. Yeah. Right. Because a seller over 1%, if someone's putting 3% down on EMD, they're probably more likely to go with that one because they have more skin in the game.
True.
I can see the logic.
But as agents, we would look at that and be like, man, that person's just taking a big risk,
Right. But it's up to the seller. And most sellers are going to go, that's more money I potentially can have if they don't go through with it.
Yeah.
Right. What's it going to cost me now? So now I just got my mortgage paid for a month.
Yeah.
Right. But again, and the issue so let's get to that. So if you say, okay, can I do it? And I say, yeah, we're clear to close, you release it. And then something happens and now their EMDs on the line, you have to go to small claims court to release it. Right. It's potential that most judges will say, because we had a guy on the Real Estate Jerky radio show and he was a real estate law. And he's like, most judges will say, did you go into this with that? And this? Okay. You owe them that money. Give it to them.
Yeah.
They're not going to side on your side. They're going to say you're going to owe them, give them the money. So you might as well just release it from the beginning.
Yeah.
And just move on, because the judge will make you do it because you signed the contract. It is a contract. That is the earnest money you put in to make that a valid contract. If you don't go through with the contract and you are past any way you can get out, you owe them that money. And that's what people don't realize.
Yeah.
And so but you can still get out if you don't want to buy it. It's just going to cost you your EMD.
Yeah.
But try to make sure that there's enough time on those. Sometimes people do those for 7 days or 10 days. Well, until I'm clear to close, because even though I submit, I had one just the other day submitted, came back a few hours later. This is what you need, which was a transaction history showing the EMD because it hadn't cleared yet, right, on the bank statements we had, and a copy of a Social Security card that was a better copy. That was it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, release it, right? I don't care, because those two things are not going to stop this transaction.
Yeah.
But then they came back and extended it for another 2 weeks.
Now, is that a conversation you have? I would imagine so, right?
What?
That you have with any first-time buyer, like, look, what, do not make any more purchases, no closing your credit
Yeah,
cards.
dude, we have videos, we have everything.
Yeah.
It hits them so many times.
But-
I wrote that in my, did you ever read my book?
I haven't read it yet.
Dude, you've had it forever. You got when you're sitting there in bed, can't sleep. Put your eyes to sleep. No, I just want to, the reason I sent it to you and then one other person is just to see, where from take it from a first time home buyer that wants to look at it. Did I hit enough in it? That's all I want to know. You know what I mean?
No, I would have started reading it, but I've just had house full of sick kids. So
no excuses.
Oh yeah.
Because I gave it to Mike. I couldn't think of it. He's like, oh, I've been dealing with kids. Same thing, right? I go, it was a perfect book to read them. Okay, as you fix your credit, here's it going through. What I mean? It's just it's the sound. They don't understand what you're saying most of the time. I'm just kidding. Yeah. I sent it to a few people and they're like, yeah, it's perfect. You know what I mean? It's not too much and not enough. You know what I mean? Kind of stuff. And that's all I want to. It's not going to be 100% perfect because things change so much in our industry, but it's going to be pretty close.
Yeah.
So, all right. So contingency period, wait until you're clear to close to release the loan one. Okay. Excellent. And then that's an end because I get so many agents like, can I release the contingency? We're clear to close. You guys need to make that decision now.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to be the one to say, go ahead and release contingency. Because then now I'm on the that's not my job. That's the real estate side to sign off on that, not the loan side. I deal with everything else. And I don't want to take that responsibility on as the loan officer.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, okay, here's where we're at. Where there should be nothing else going on. So go, technically you don't have a choice. You have to release contingency, period. Right.
Yeah.
But I know every agent looks at the loan. Is it okay if we release them? Well, we're clear to close.
Yeah.
If you're smart, that's what you say.
Yeah.
You don't say, oh yeah, go ahead and then come back. You said,
I've got it in an email.
Right. It's like, and then now you're technically could be liable.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, because when you ask us, I mean, appraisal's in, you don't ask us, can we release contingency? You just release that. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You guys do your inspections. You don't ask the inspector, can you release contingencies?
Yeah.
Right. You just release them. Right. So if I tell you clear to close, you shouldn't be asking the loan officer whether you should release them.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I think that's a really good way to look at it. Right.
Because you don't ask anybody else.
Yeah.
Right. You just automatically do it. And that's how you should go forward. If we wait till they tell you it's clear to close, and then you should just go ahead and release them. Got it. Now I know how to say it because I just said it, came up with it.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, but obviously with inspections and appraisals, those are reports we can look at, right? Where with on the loan side, you kind of have, all the information. So,
right. But the clear to close means there is nothing else. They're just ordering docs.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I mean, typically that stuff comes so fast that we're waiting for docs to go out, for the week that they want it to go out and sign and all that stuff. We're waiting for that period. So, at that point to release them is not a big deal.
Yeah.
But sometimes nobody wants us to tell everybody that. This is the other thing I run into. The buyer's agent doesn't want us to communicate with the listing agent that we're this part in the transaction, because you're going to go back to them to try to get some, more money for closing costs or more money for this. And they don't want to know how long is it, that we're so close to the end.
Gotcha.
And so for me, as I think it differently, I would tell the selling agent, hey, we need some money for the closing costs for this. And they're ready to close.
Yeah.
So I need you to make that decision quickly. Right. So we can get this thing done. We can get out. We know instead of the other way where they don't understand where we are in the transaction. Are you following me here a little bit? Yeah. It's just because sometimes people are like, stop sending that out to everybody. But that's what we do. We communicate and communicate and communicate. That's our job. We over communicate what we're supposed to. We tell everybody appraisals in. We don't tell them what it is. That's none of the seller side, but we tell everything it's in and there's no issue. We tell you and the buyer's agent what the numbers are, but nobody else.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the same thing as if we're clear to close and we let everybody know, you can still come to us and say, hey, we're getting another $5,000 for closing costs. Fine. No big deal. The only time it becomes a big deal is if we had none from the beginning and now we have $10,000.
Wow.
Because then it has to go back to the underwriter to sign off and then whatever. But if we had $5,000 from the beginning, any, doesn't matter how much, but any, then it's just the closing underwriter who can sign off on it, which is at the same time as closing. It's not a big deal because you already had some in the transaction.
Yeah.
You follow the difference?
Yeah.
It's just so much easier. And even if you don't have any and you sign loan documents, it's only the CD that they'd have to re-sign anyway. Yeah. And maybe an instruction page. So it's not a big deal if it comes a little bit later. But I'm more to tell everybody what's going on so they know that, hey, these people know what they're doing. So if you want to ask for something, they know it's going to get done. Instead of ask for something and then come back, oh, we're canceling.
Yeah. Last thing we want to hear right now, right?
Well, I'm just, but if that's why I'm like, why don't you want everybody to know what's going on? Because I have one agent in Tuolumne County saying, don't communicate with the seller side about anything. Okay.
Yeah. What's she hiding, right? I mean,
well, it just that's old
right?
school. That's old school thinking, to me. She is old school. But anyway. But to me, it's like it's about, we want the perfect thing in the transaction is if you're the seller side, you want to know what's going on. If you're a listing agent, you want to know, hey, is the loan going through? What any issues? It's been approved. Where now it's, conditional approval is now it's clear to close and docs are being ordered.
Yeah.
Don't you want to know that as a listing side?
Well, and that just,
you can assure your sellers what's going on.
Yeah, I think it's the best way to run business, right? Like you said, obviously has some kind of old school mentality she's working with, but I know from a selling and listing side, right? Knowing that you have that reassurance, so you're just waiting for everyone to sign loan docs, everyone can relax, right? I mean, The listing agent gets sleep again. The sellers know that everything's going to go through. And I had a transaction about 6 months ago, and the loan officer was pretty straight up with me. He's like, look, man, all we need is one more bank statement from this guy, and then they're going to be clear to close. I'm like, cool. Okay. Well, then I'm not sweating it. I'm not worried that there's a job change or all of a sudden he made a purchase, or for some reason it's not going to go through. Yeah.
I remember that one.
Huh?
I said, do I remember that one?
It was through a big company that I was not wanting to work with.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But,
no, because when we first met, I did the same thing. You were the listing agent. I told you, don't worry about this buyer.
Oh, yeah. That was a couple years ago.
I don't remember, dude. It's like yesterday to me.
Yeah.
Everything goes so fast.
Actually, that was 3 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. It's important to let everybody know, hey, I'm just letting you know where we're at, but there's no issue. This is what the issue is, and, move forward. Because I always ask the buyer side, hey, can I explain this to the listing agent so they understand, they don't get up nervous? Yeah, go ahead. They say, no, I can't. There's sometimes that some people tell me, don't tell any of the people anything. And then agents get upset with me. I'm like, okay, you don't understand. I have a fiduciary responsibility to my client, not you as the agent, buyer's agent, and not you as a listing agent. If my buyer says, I can't say anything to you, I can't say anything to you.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen, right?
Yeah.
They're so private. They don't want anything out there. I mean, nobody knows the loans I've done for people I've done it for unless they've said something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But no, yeah, you do remind me of that one. That was a real pucker one because there was no communication from the buyer's agent, and my sellers were already contingent on a house out of state, and no communication from a buyer's agent normally means something's gone sideways. Well, it turns out she was just taking some time off and didn't like to answer her phone.
Yeah. I don't get that. If you got a transaction going, you need somebody to cover that phone.
Yeah.
All right. We've been here for a while.
Right.
We talked about many different things. Talked about,
it's a variety show.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. We talked about where, what's affecting rates today. We talked about loan contingencies. We talked about rate locks, and talked about how important it has communication with everybody in the transaction. I think we hit pretty much everything today.
Yeah.
All right. Everybody make it a great day. And Bobby and I will see you next